It's a blinding, fast-moving day of news today. 3 confirmation hearings for Trump cabinet picks, all happening at the same time. And that's not all. Right now in the Senate, the vote-a-rama is starting, and it's the first step to repealing Obamacare. And President-elect Donald Trump giving his first news conference since winning the election, announcing for the first time he believes Russia meddled in the election.
As far as hacking, I think it was Russia, but I think we also get hacked by other countries and other people. And I have to say this also. The Democratic National Committee was totally open to be hacked. They did a very poor job. They could have had hacking defense, which we had.
The president-elect refusing to take shots at Vladimir Putin, but having no back off from taking aim at both the spy agencies and the American media.
If Putin likes Donald Trump, guess what, folks? That's called an asset, not a liability. He's asking a question. Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
You're attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news. I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace. And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do.
NBC's Hallie Jackson is outside the Trump Tower, and today she was right there at the long-awaited news conference. Hallie?
Hey there, Greta. Good to be with you here. Yeah, 168 days, right? Members of the media have been waiting to speak with President-elect Donald Trump, finally facing the press, if you will, for the first time as president-elect. And I'll tell you what, it was Donald Trump as he has always been, right? New Trump, same as the old Trump. At times, this press conference was chaotic. At times, the president-elect became antagonistic. He was alternating between sounding angry, sounding amused at points, sparring in some cases with members of the media, as you just played. I think out of the headlines, right, you've got to look at 2 major things. Number one, his relationship with Russia. Moscow front and center in these discussions. The president-elect answering questions, for example, about what his message would be to Vladimir Putin, that essentially he shouldn't do that, Donald Trump says. But at the same time, plenty of unanswered questions, too, like, will he put up sanctions against Russia? That was something that the president-elect did not answer to. The other big headline, of course, was what he would do to separate his business interest from his interests as commander-in-chief, essentially, leader of this nation, how he would handle all of that. You might have seen that pile of paperwork that was spread out. His team says that those are the documents that prove that Donald Trump is, in fact, taking the steps to relinquish authority of the Trump organization once he takes office by Inauguration Day. He's also going to be forming a blind trust, handing over day-to-day control to his sons, his adult sons, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric, along with another Trump executive, as Ivanka also steps away from her role. And there will also be an ethics advisor that is going to be hired to sign off on any deals that might pose conflict of interest problems. That said, Greta, just within the last couple of hours, we heard from the Office of Governmental Ethics, the independent governmental agency tasked with overseeing ethics concerns. And they say that the president-elect is simply not meeting the same standards as past presidents. I might imagine, for example, that the Donald Trump team would argue, well, there has never been a president like Donald Trump. But that remains to be seen. Outside experts, too, say that they're concerned that this is essentially lipstick on a pig when it comes to these ethics untanglements. A lot of other news, though, too, right? You've got health care. The president-elect saying he wants to repeal and replace almost simultaneously, which I'm sure is causing some consternation on Capitol Hill. And then, of course, slipping in his new pick for VA secretary. The fact that that is buried, it might be a headline on any other day. A Democrat who has served in the Obama administration, Greta.
Thank you, Hallie. Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi is the House Minority Leader. She's the boss of the Democrats in the House. She is also part of the Gang of 8 that received the classified briefing on Russian hacking. Nice to see you, Madam Leader.
Thank you, Greta. Congratulations to you for the record with Greta.
Thank you very much. It's fun to have the new job. I appreciate it. Earlier today, you said, long before I was briefed by the committee, I've always wondered what did Russia have on Donald Trump that Donald Trump would question if he should support sanctions we've had in Europe. This is essential to NATO. What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the things that has been very important to our national security is the success of NATO. And NATO depends on those sanctions on Russia for invading, of course, Crimea, but those sanctions relate to the Ukraine. So when the president places in doubt the fact that we would be supporting those sanctions so important to our national security, it raises the question, why? What are the financial ties? What are the other ties? Again, long before I had that briefing, and nothing I learned in that briefing is part of what I'm saying to you now. The interesting to me is that I'm long time on intelligence, over 20 years. And our intelligence is about force protection, protecting our men and women in uniform when we place them in harm's way, and not placing them in harm's way if we can. And what this president, who will be the commander-in-chief, is saying to the very agencies that protect our forces is, I'm going to dismantle you as I bolster Vladimir Putin, who is a threat to the security of the region.
So where does it stand now? Because he took some swipes. He took swipes at the media, of course, and of course, getting the report wrong. I don't blame him oftentimes for some of the swipes. We get swiped by all politicians, both sides of the aisle. Yeah. How does the intelligence community, if you know, view him tonight? Will they be able to work together? Because it does seem from the outside that they are clashing.
Well, they'll have to work together because the President of the United States has to have intelligence, information. That information is key to every decision that you make. In order to have judgment, you have to know what the factors are out there. So I'm hoping that with people he's appointing that he may have confidence in, that he will be receptive to not putting himself and our security at a disadvantage by discrediting the intelligence agencies.
Who leaked this information? Did the intelligence leak this information on Trump, this latest round?
I don't know.
In terms of all the thing that's been swirling around the last 24 hours.
I don't think that. I think that for a long time, the news agencies have been doing their own investigations. And I don't know what the BuzzFeed thing is because I watched the president's speech last night and I've had my own busy day. But that isn't something that's leaked by the intelligence.
Well, the NBC has never been able to confirm that. But anyway, that obviously Donald Trump is upset about that.
No, I don't have any reason to think that the intelligence agencies leaked that information. I think that's a result of lots of we've been hearing for a while, for months, that the news agencies organizations had information, but that they had not been fully corroborated, and you see what's happening now.
And I think at least fair tonight to say that nobody's corroborated it. Fair to say tonight. As far as we know.
What's interesting is, what I was interested in is testimony yesterday at the Senate hearings on whether, on this subject, whether the FBI is investigating this subject.
Anyway, well, I'm sure we'll figure out as the days unwind. All right, can you work with Donald Trump, do you think?
Well, he's the President of the United States, and as I said in opening day in our Congress, on some of the issues that he talked about in the campaign, if he has a real infrastructure plan, not a tax bill for the rich that is disguised as an infrastructure plan, but a real infrastructure plan, if some of the things he talked about, balancing work and family, important, draining the swamp of big money in politics, issues like that, we can probably work together. But where he tries to undermine Medicare by overturning the Affordable Care Act, we'll stand our ground. We have to strive, though, to find common ground.
Well, what he talked about today, he talked about Obamacare, and he seems to be a little different than some Republicans. He wants to repeal and replace, not just repeal. In fact, here's what he had to say.
It'll be repeal and replace. It will be essentially simultaneously. It will be various segments, you understand, but will most likely be on the same day or the same week, but probably the same day, could be the same hour. So we're going to do repeal and replace. Very complicated stuff.
Right now, the vote-a-rama is starting in the Senate, their first step to try to repeal it. I think it's universally agreed that everyone loves the pre-existing conditions that they be included, but where are we on this repeal and possibly replace?
Well, as I've said, repeal and replace have only one thing going for it: alliteration. It doesn't have the votes. It's very hard to repeal and replace and in a minute, as you said, in a minute, an hour, in a day. But you cannot have the goodies without having the bigger pool. Why we did the Affordable Care Act was to lower cost, expand benefits, increase the access for people. If they come up with something that does not decrease the access or undermine the benefits or does add to the cost, then we can't can't support that. But let's see what they put forward, and they're going to have to put forward something.
What would you do? Are you satisfied with it as is, or is there some tinkering that you would do with Obamacare?
Well, any major initiative, whether it was Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, you always come back and say, in the implementation, what can we learn from what we do? But what the American people have to know, that in overturning the Affordable Care Act, the Republicans will do very serious damage to Medicare. Very serious to Medicare. It's exactly simultaneous with the Ryan budget, which would remove the guarantee to Medicare. So the Affordable Care Act, Medicare, and Medicaid, which meet the needs not only of the 20-some million people who have access who didn't have it before, but the majority of the American people who get their benefits in the workplace. Again, you mentioned no pre-existing condition.
Everybody loves that
no
one.
Lifetime limits. No, but you cannot have it, and that's why we didn't have it before, without premium skyrocketing, unless you have a bigger pool of people. And that's why we have the Republican idea of a mandate to increase the pool of people who are paying into the system so that you can take down the cost.
Can we afford it as is?
The Affordable Care Act is practically paying for itself. In fact, the money that is coming in is going to help us prolong the life of Medicare.
Why are so many people complaining about their premiums skyrocketing?
They aren't.
You don't think you don't think people are seeing skyrocketing? They're just sending me emails and lying to me.
The ones who no, they're not lying to you. There are some people who may have higher premiums, but I'll tell you one thing: they do have better benefits. But by and large, most people have the rate of increase of cost for medical cost in our country is the lowest rate of increase since they've measured this thing for over 50 years. One of the big contributors to any increase, though, is the cost of prescription drugs, and that's a place that we can revisit, that we weren't successful in getting that down as much as we wanted in the original bill. But understand the connection between Medicaid. 50% of the money that is spent on long-term care for middle-income families and poor families in our country, long-term care for seniors, is from Medicaid. That is a middle-income advantage.
We only have 30 seconds left. After January 20th and the President Obama leaves the White House, who's in charge of the Democratic Party?
We have room for all kinds of leadership.
I know, but is there a leader in the short run? I mean, are you as leader of the House Democrats? Do you become the leader?
We have our role, the Senate. We've been working with...
somebody's got to be sort of in charge to rebuild the party.
Look, do I remind you that we won the majority of the votes in the country?
Your state brought that in.
And I'm very proud of that. We know how to win elections. And we intend to, right now, try to persuade the Republicans to listen to their constituents who are benefiting from the Affordable Care Act and not use these scare tactics, which have no basis.
Well, we're watching tonight what's going on in the Senate as a first step, at least by Republicans. Leader Pelosi, always nice to see you.
The Senate, we're working very closely with the Senate Democrats.
I know you are. And I hope you'll come back often.
I look forward to it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rex Tillerson's hearing kicked off today. Republican Senator Ron Johnson was there. He joins me live, but first, after the break.